Thanks, John. Thanks, everybody, for getting up early and after, I think, a lot of drinking, eating, and partying last night. So I see we have a few hearty souls out there. So real quick, for those of you in the audience that don't know Consult Hyperion, I want to give you just a quick overview of who we are and what we've done. We've been around for about 28 years. We're a UK consultancy. We work globally on a number of different projects. Our U.S. offices are in New York. We specialize in secure electronic transactions. And as you can see, some of the projects and folks we worked with is TfL, the Transit Authority in London. We were there from the inception on open payments, and we continue to work with them today. We work with all the payment schemes on a number of technical and strategic initiatives. We consider ourselves EMV experts in terms of the world of EMV. We do a lot of work on mobile, and particularly mobile POS is the important and most unique thing that's occurring in the market right now. We do a lot of work there as well. So enough about us, and let's kind of start going around the world in 80 cases, but with 15 minutes, I think we can only get through 6. So we'll kind of go through the developing countries, really the developing economies of the world, talk a little bit about NFC. We'll look at Japan and Korea, some of the more mature markets. We'll look at the developed economies such as Australia and the UK, and end up with the US to kind of give everyone a snapshot of what's going on with NFC on a global basis. Now, I know this slide is horrible, but Dave Birch, if you know Dave, loves this slide. So I told him I would keep it, but no one can see it. So what the real takeaway there is it's really on the axis. And if you go to the far, I guess from your perspective, right-hand side, it's really saying countries that have great cash usage, 75% or more, they're still really cash basis. You go the other direction, it's countries that have less cash usage. Also on the left-hand side of that grid are more countries that are internet or web-centric. On the other side is emerging mobile-centric economies. So if you talk about the developing world and you kind of go back down into that right-hand corner of the grid, you've got folks like Latin America, Africa, certain countries in Asia in there. Some of the BRIC countries are there, Russia, China, India, and so forth. But what really is happening in the developing worlds is really more, I'm going to call it person-to-person payment with mobile, like M-Pesa, which we help launch in Africa. It's really kind of person-to-person payment via text because there really is not a lot of contactless terminals. There's no cards in place. It's very, very developing. But there is a lot of mobile, but even there, mobile is more, not smartphone mobile, but still in text mode. Now, Russia is a little bit different and so forth. We're going to talk about them. Mobile is really emerging. They say, I think, in a few years, China's going to be 100% mobile. So there's a lot of things occurring there. If you go above that line, you're going to look at things like Japan and Korea, more mature markets. But again, very cash focused, very cash, usage is very, very high. So what this picture is for you that know of Yandex. This is Jane, and I always butcher her name, Shava Salina. And she is the CEO of Yandex Money. And for you that don't know, Yandex is the PayPal equivalent in Russia. They have about 14 million accounts. They add 9,000 new accounts a day into their system. What she's showing us here, we're in a restaurant, and on one side you got an ATM machine, and behind her, you can kind of see it over the other side, is really where you put cash into. And it's the Yandex Money machine. And so in Russia, people will take cash out, walk next door to that other machine, put all the cash into the machine to pay for bills, load up their mobile phones, top off their wallets, buy virtual Visa and MasterCards. So it's a very interesting market. So it's a little digital, but yet it's very cash-based. So you go from one machine to the other to make it all happen. So again, NFC is not something you're going to see in that market anytime really soon, but there's a lot of unique emerging technologies occurring that eventually we think will lead to some interesting things occurring in Russia. But again, very high cash usage, and you'll see these all over Russia. Another very, very busy slide here And that's really Japan. And what that slide is to represent is it's a very complex and mature market. There are a lot of things going on, right? You've got the mobile operators that's involved. You've got the payment schemes involved. What's in place is everything from prepaid to debit to credit. Just a lot of activity in Japan. Now, some of the interesting facts in Japan is today 1 out of 6 phones are used for payments. But we saw between 2012 and 2013 that the number of those payments kind of plateaued. And we think a big factor of that really is the number of contactless terminals available in the marketplace. One of the great successes in Japan has been McDonald's, where every McDonald's location in Japan have contactless terminals, as well as they put in a very unique loyalty and incentive scheme in there. And so people are using that from a consumer perspective, really driven by the incentive and the rewards and loyalty around it. Last year also, both Square and PayPal entered the market, so you should see a lot more in terms of payment options in NFC in the coming year. And at the end of the year, MasterCard announced they'd put in about 400 and some thousand contactless NFC-enabled POS terminals. So with the development of more outlets, more contactless terminals, we believe we'll see a lot more payment NFC initiatives in that marketplace. Okay, let's go on to the UK, and this shows some of our chip consultants in a pub using their NFC phone to buy a pint. And that happens quite a bit, evidently. So that's a market, and I'm going to give you some stats from last year. Visa claims to have exceeded its targets in the UK market with contactless card adoption. And some of the numbers that they have put out is between 2012 and 2013, they grew from 97 million sterling to 461 million sterling year over year in growth. There are currently 30 million Visa contactless cards in the UK and 263,000 terminals. So really what you're seeing is many, many more, it's EMV compliant country. Many people are issuing, from a bank perspective, contactless cards. More merchants are stepping up to put contactless terminals in place. What's driving merchants is really a big incentive is it's a 40 to 50% discount in the interchange rate over chip and PIN. So a merchant has an incentive to go there. So you're starting to see that. Marks & Spencer, big retailer, uses it quite a bit. And now you're starting to see contactless terminals and contactless applications appear in more niche places in the UK. Eat, if you know them as EAT, is a kind of a fast food restaurant chain. And when they went contactless, again, year over year, they saw a 75% increase in their payments. And now contactless payments just for them are 50% of all payments in store went contactless to a card. Now, an interesting fact, they did a test with NFC where you could go and tap a poster in the store to get free stuff. And the test where the consumer had to tap the poster to get things failed miserably. So it's interesting in terms of consumer education adoption, what they're willing to do or not do with NFC at that point in time. So we believe in the UK market it's going to continue to grow. The number one holdback there is just consumer education, knowing when and why they should be using their mobile phone to doing that. There's many more NFC-enabled handsets as well. So we think the UK market will continue to grow with NFC. Now let's move on to Australia. This shows, I think it's actually Dave using his Barclay MasterCard NFC to pay for the taxi in Australia. Now, Australia is still the number one MasterCard PayPass market in the world, and there's a very prominent number of Visa PayWave as well. Their adoption of contactless payments leads the world with over 50% of all debit transactions today on contactless. So we believe when you start to have a lot of contactless card usage and a lot of contactless point of sale, you'll start to get adoption from the consumer that tap and go is okay. And the next move would be to more mobile. In Australia, there's a lot of plans for mobile activities with NFC. And the Commonwealth Bank of Australia announced last year their NFC payment service with secured elements on a Samsung Galaxy. So you get three factors that's driving a lot of these countries, right? The number of countries that have been contactless cards, right? The number of POS that is contactless from a merchant perspective, and then how many enabled, NFC-enabled phones are starting to hit the market. So as those things start to, kind of ramp up, you're going to see a lot more NFC opportunities for payments. Now moving on to Canada, this is showing one of our consultants in Toronto at the end of the year using their BlackBerry to do a Tim Hortons host card emulation, point and tap or tap transaction. So host card emulation is something you're going to start to hear a lot more of if you haven't by now, and it's going to help drive, we believe, NFC usage. Like Australia, it's EMV compliant country. A lot of the issuers now have been issuing contactless cards. Many of the merchants are putting contactless terminals in place. They're still in process of rolling out their debit cards to contactless. So we see nothing but good things in the Canadian market in terms of where NFC is going. Now, that takes us to the United States, and even though we've seen a lot, you kind of look at that and go, how does it really apply to what's going to happen here? We think there's some things driving the marketplace here that's going to make it very, very exciting. First of all, we're going to have EMV migration. EMV migration's occurring, which is a huge step. You've got the new technology coming, host card emulation, Bluetooth low energy is also things that are happening that's going to help us. And also the growth of both NFC and non-NFC wallets. A lot of these things we believe are going to really help the U.S. take off and maybe be a leader in this space where today we're not quite there. Again, as you'll see, another slide with somebody in the pub. So somebody likes a lot of beer, it looks like. But let's take a look at some of the activities in the U.S. Google Wallet, they started out with a bang, then they kind of shut down. Then last year with the KitKat and the new announcement that they would include host card emulation in that release. And that's opened a lot of doors for opportunity for NFC to take place. So that's occurring. You've got Level Up. You've got Square in the marketplace. Level Up has over 3,000 merchants and over 200,000 cardholders today. ISIS, yesterday morning, I did an announcement. They did their presentation. They did their national launch last year. I think they're very happy with their results. So you've got a lot of activity going in that marketplace. But I think the most important one was Starbucks. If you look at Starbucks, announced a couple of weeks ago that now over 30% of all transactions in store occur on their application. It's an amazing figure. And the number is about, that equates to about $1 billion in sales. So when you look at that from a consumer point, consumers are now using it. It's easy, it's convenient, you're getting something. And all those things added together is starting to educate the U.S. marketplace that you can use your mobile phone to make payments. So we think that's all very good activities. Now, to kind of end up, what are some of the lessons for us to learn? Well, first of all, we believe with the EMV migration, it's going to be a huge step in that direction of getting contactless cards in market. Issuers or merchants will continue to install new POS to support EMV. Those are all good steps. We're going to continue to have a number of NFC-enabled handsets in the marketplace, and there's even a rumor now that Apple may be, with their 6th release, involved in that, and that's still rumor, but that may occur. You've got host card emulation that's allowing people to do some very unique things. That's probably the number one topic that we're getting asked to speak about since December is host card and how that can be leveraged with mobile payment. Huge opportunity there. You're going to have the growth continually of ISIS and Square and Level Up and a lot of other players. There's more POS terminals being put in place that are mobile POS. At the same time, consumers are getting a lot of exposure to the Starbucks app. Chipotle app, right, is out there. And all these things really, if you look at it, helps the consumer understand that now I can do more with my phone. If you look at the Chipotle app, I use that not because of the payment, but because it allows me to cut in line and have convenience. So, we believe a lot of these early things are going to be adapted by consumers, are going to be tied to incentive, rewards, convenience. And then, by the way, how do you pay? But if it's all integrated, there'll be a lot of good things occur. The other thing that we believe is very interesting in the market is low energy, Bluetooth low energy. With beacons within stores these days, you could basically walk into a store, it'll notify your cell phone that you're in there, open up an application, based on where you're in the store, what you're looking at, maybe drive offers right down to you for whatever you're looking at, and in turn, actually kind of help NFC in terms of when you check out, NFC is how you do it. Because NFC is still the more secure way versus Bluetooth, even though you could do it. We believe that Bluetooth and NFC together could be very good friends and not foes in that regard. So there's a lot of interesting things, and like Apple, I think, has their iBeacon as another example of how they're looking at this marketplace. And, you know, last but not least, one of the things that we always talk about is our AAA play of authentication, applications, and APIs. All those things are going to come together to really help drive NFC and mobile. But the one thing to be cognizant of, cards are here to stay. They're going to be around for a long time, so this is not going to be an immediate no-card situation. You're going to have both in place. So we think that the future looks very bright in the U.S. market and globally for NFC. Thank you.